Good evening and welcome to this special Faith Nation looking at China's rising threat. From CBN's headquarters in Virginia Beach, I'm Brody Carter. Well, it's about a 20-hour flight from Beijing to Oklahoma. And after the Sooner State legalized medical marijuana, investors have been making that trek from mainland China. Chinese backers have bought nearly 2 million acres of Oklahoma farmland. Tara Mergener reports on the fallout.
Mexican cartels have long dominated the black market marijuana trade in the U.S., but the Chinese have also emerged as significant players, including here in Oklahoma after the state legalized medical marijuana several years ago. Once celebrated for picturesque landscapes, the Oklahoma fields of green that sustained generations of farmers with income.
My mom and dad raised all of us here.
And Americans with food are now a hot real estate commodity, generating international interest.
Welcome to your own piece of paradise. 160 acres of land for sale in northeastern Oklahoma.
Foreign investors, 80% of them Chinese,
they're literally bringing in briefcases full of cash.
Planting roots in the heartland to grow marijuana.
Smells like a dead skunk.
Oklahoma's land rush took off when voters green-lighted medical marijuana in 2018.
Voters approved a medical marijuana proposal on Tuesday, and it's one of the most permissive in the country.
It accelerated 2 years later due to pandemic shutdowns. While other states locked down, Oklahoma opened wide for business. A medical marijuana grower license allows a business to legally grow marijuana for medicinal purposes in Oklahoma, but the number of black market operations is on the rise.
People needed work, and the criminal organizations needed to be able to move their product.
The allure of affordable land, inexpensive licenses, and lax laws combined for an irresistible recipe, turning the breadbasket of America into a pot lover's paradise.
I'm getting letters. They want to buy 54 acres of my land over in Lincoln County. They gave me a price, everything. I won't sell it to them.
While Kingfisher County farmer John Emmerich turns away offers, plenty of others are trading masses of land for fast cash, quickly approaching 2 million acres across the state.
Going after the greed, the money. That's all they're doing.
Drug laws are so lax that they can pretty much do whatever they want.
Since Oklahoma prohibits land sales to non-U.S. citizens,
It wasn't the Chinese bought it. It was some white people, USA people, who did it.
criminals are paying locals or lawyers to buy it for them.
We'll pay you X amount of dollars, you put your name on the grow license, and we're going to grow underneath you.
About half of the state's 6,400 operators are currently under investigation.
Each time we've hit one of those farms, it's really a smaller part of a much bigger investigation, because that farm is oftentimes tied to 40 to 400 other farms in Oklahoma, which are all being run by a higher up group of people that are moving the plants, moving the workers, and more importantly, making the money disappear.
A 2-year license moratorium is in effect as law enforcement struggles to weed out illicit pot growers.
When you've got several thousand grows across the state and you have a team of 6 to 10 people trying to keep up with it, there's just not enough time in the day or in the year for them to do it.
Their investigations widening to include human traffickers and violent crime. This was ruthless execution-style killings.
Correct. Are there other people inside? Yeah. Okay.
One of the worst cases happening on this 10-acre marijuana farm in Kingfisher County. What led to the execution of 4 Chinese nationals here?
So what we were told about was this was all over money, approximately $300,000. Don't care who they hurt or kill or anything.
Despite problems caused by this medical marijuana boom, supporters insist the cannabis industry is breathing new life into the state.
It's very beneficial, you know, with it boosting our economy.
Still, while shops on almost every corner buzz with business,
gummy bears, you got vape cartridges, we have pre-roll.
Legal retailers like Brandon Carcho say the shadowy underworld is undercutting business.
They don't have to follow the regulations we have to follow, and they don't have to pay the taxes that we have to pay, it hurts us. It's definitely a risk to buy anything that's illegal. You don't know what you're getting. You don't know what's going to happen.
5 years into Oklahoma's medical marijuana program, there is growing skepticism about its legitimacy. The state has more cardholders than any other in the country.
The doctor does his appointments virtually, so you don't even have to go anywhere.
Oklahoma law outlines no qualifying conditions for obtaining a card, raising concerns about potential misuse and addiction.
Has Oklahoma, in your opinion, created more drug addicts?
Oh, absolutely. And because of the purity of the marijuana, we're seeing the adverse effects in medical and mental health.
In what many believe is a change of heart, Sooner State voters voted down a plan to also make recreational use legal, even though it would have brought in millions more in tax revenue. Still, it's clear the Wild West of weed is far from being tamed, while the marijuana industry blooms bigger and bigger, and Oklahoma farmland quickly disappears.
Is there any turning back for the state at this point?
It's the almighty dollar. We're starting to lose our morals and our values in the efforts of trying to get more money.
About 400,000 Oklahomans participate in the medical marijuana program. That's nearly 10% of the population and the largest number per capita in the country. In Oklahoma City, I'm Tara Mergener, CBN News.
Up next, a spy network on a mission to silence Chinese dissidents. A look at how they're operating in the U.S. when Faith Nation returns. Welcome back. Threatening, entrapping, and even kidnapping. That's what a vast network of spies is doing to critics of the Chinese government. And as Dale Hurd reports, it's happening right here in the U.S.
This is the first former member of China's secret police to speak publicly about Beijing's active campaign to silence Chinese pro-democracy voices overseas. Calling himself Eric, he was an agent for China's Ministry of Public Security, or First Bureau, from 2008 until last year, when he defected to Australia.
My job was to collect the intelligence about the country I was in and the anti-communist groups there. I was supposed to infiltrate these groups, make friends, and trap targets for return to China.
Eric was coerced into becoming an agent in 2008 after his arrest for supporting a pro-democracy party and given a choice: help the Chinese Communist Party, or CCP, catch dissidents abroad or go to jail. He chose the former, taking on fake identities such as a property executive and an anti-communist freedom fighter to lure dissidents to countries where they could be abducted and returned to China. But because he secretly protected targets and says no one was arrested because of his work, he was concerned his handlers would become suspicious, and he decided to defect.
I didn't want to be responsible for any targets being returned to China. And I tried to make sure that it did not happen. And this made my bosses suspicious of me.
Eric's testimony confirms our reporting and the reports of others that a Chinese government spy network is threatening, entrapping, and even kidnapping critics of the Chinese Communist government.
These are kind of the methods being used by the CCP. Again, this is not an allegation we're making. This is what their official documents state.
Laura Harth, who tracks Chinese transnational repression for the human rights group Safeguard Defenders, says we can assume there are agents like Eric operating in the U.S. But these CCP agents are only part of a larger campaign by the Chinese government called the United Front.
So the United Front is something that's being defined by the Chinese Communist Party as one of its secret or magic weapons. And essentially its task is two things. On the one hand, expand the so-called circle of friends of the Chinese Communist Party. So co-opting or influencing politicians, media, academia, entrepreneurs. But on the other hand, and this is something that is often overlooked when we talk about United Front, its task is also to crack down on critics, right? To silence them, to divide them.
An Amnesty International survey of Chinese students in 24 universities in Europe and North America found that many live in fear of surveillance, harassment, or intimidation by Chinese agents. It's unclear how many of the so-called Chinese police stations used to control dissidents are still operating in the U.S. On paper, it might be less than 5. The one above a noodle shop in New York we showed you last year was finally shut down by authorities.
Police stations, or so-called police stations, is really the tip of the iceberg. We need to take a broad view and understand what the wider picture looks like and the amount of proxies and networks that the Chinese Party state is operating.
Bob Fu, the founder and president of the Texas-based ministry China Aid, helped lead the 1989 Tiananmen Square protest as a student. He still faces harassment by Chinese agents 35 years later.
Recent few months, even, I had been harassed and receiving threats with text messages, and also CCP agents booked hotels under my name and then called the police from New York to Los Angeles, from Washington, D.C. to Houston, basically for bomb threats. Said Bob Fu was about to set off bombs.
Pro-democracy activist Li Jianji in Los Angeles, who Chinese agents have tried to kill 3 times, told us Chinese Americans are still surrounded by constant threat of danger. In a special message to his former colleagues still trying to harass and trap Chinese dissidents, Eric encouraged them to recognize the nature of the Communist Party, that it's a fascist, totalitarian party, and that carrying out these illegal and secret activities in various countries is not good for them. And he challenges them to instead do something good for human civilization. Beijing's continued repression of overseas Chinese begs the question, if those Chinese who fled communism for freedom still live in fear of the Chinese Communist Party, are they really free? Dale Hurd, CBN News.
Well, coming up, fears of a global food shortage, why China is staking claims on Africa's breadbasket, and what it means for the world. China's long-term investment in African nations is turning the continent into a breadbasket to feed the Chinese, and that could mean shortages for the rest of the world. Gary Lane reports.
This new war is happening right now without armies or any shots being fired. It's a global struggle with deadly consequences. Who will dominate the world food supply?
Food is power. We need to remember that, and this is very dangerous for the United States.
Our country's former UN ambassador for food and agriculture, Kip Tom, contends Africa is the new battleground in a conflict over global food dominance.
China wants to seize control of the continent of Africa. And it's not about the mining and the critical minerals. It's about agricultural productivity.
Gatestone Institute China analyst Gordon Chang agrees.
China has a food problem. It's worsening food shortages. Self-sufficiency percentages for food for China are relentlessly falling.
That's why this year ports in Shanghai are reportedly on target to receive 250,000 tons of food from Africa, valued at more than $500 million. The African Union wants to expand trade with Beijing and gain Chinese innovation to help expand long-term food production. Current agricultural technology has helped South Africa and Nigeria become the continent's largest food producers. Ambassador Tom suggests that led to an August visit by Chinese diplomats with Nigerian officials, followed by President Xi Jinping's trip to South Africa for the BRICS conference.
The reality is the Chinese Communist Party goes in through every country in Africa, investing in infrastructure and other projects and actually capturing the country's natural resources. But their ultimate goal is to have Africa be the breadbasket for the country of China to feed their 1.4 billion people.
And, we shouldn't have to worry just about Africa. We should be worrying about the U.S.
A future conflict over Taiwan or tariffs and trade battles could place the U.S. food supply at risk. Threatened regimes often use food as a weapon against their opponents. During the 1990s, the people of South Sudan refused to embrace Islam, and the Khartoum government retaliated by denying them food, causing many to die from starvation. Chang warns Americans should have learned from the COVID pandemic about food scarcity. While U.S. consumers couldn't get meat at grocery stores, the world's top pork producer, Chinese-owned Smithfield Foods, shipped pork to China. Although Smithfield is not a state-owned company, Chang believes it operated at the behest of the Chinese Communist Party.
It had to do what the party wanted. It shipped pork to China at the great detriment to the United States. So we got a problem at home.
China is also taking steps to lessen its reliance on U.S.-grown food. It's turned to Brazil, making it the top exporter of agricultural products to China, providing 20% of the country's food supply. So what can be done in the short term to strengthen the food security of the United States? Ambassador Tom insists the country needs to increase domestic food production and manufacture its own critical agricultural products, like fertilizers and others, rather than getting from adversaries like Russia, Belarus, and China.
This is a wake-up call, and we could be a food power, and we could use it in a manner that benefits the United States, but our friends and allies around the world.
Chang contends China is motivated by the doctrine of Tianxia, the belief the CCP has the right to rule all under heaven, and an obligation to do so.
China's tried to dominate food because it wants to rule the world. And so we've got to understand the context of what is occurring and the significance of what is occurring. And we Americans have not been good at doing that. We just ignore what our enemies say. We ignored Osama bin Laden until 9/11. We're ignoring the Chinese now.
Gary Lane, CBN News.
Tens of thousands of Christians praying around the clock. This unprecedented prayer movement is sweeping through Taiwan and crossing all denominational barriers. The Revival Prayer Group movement is an urgent response to China's increasing threat of war against the island nation, a war that could have catastrophic consequences on the global economy as well. George Thomas has more from Taipei.
The tensions are peaking. Beijing's belligerence is once again making Taipei jittery.
China's military releasing this video recently showing what simulated attacks on Taiwan would look like. The tiny island off the mainland coast now facing almost daily Chinese military harassment. Meanwhile,
Taiwan is beefing up its military and training with new U.S. weapons.
All in preparation for potential full-scale war.
To be clear, we do not seek conflict or confrontation, but we will not flinch in the face of bullying or coercion.
While the war drums grow louder by day, Taiwan Christians are taking to their knees by night.
The united prayers and fasting prayers of the churches in Taiwan are much more than ever before. It's an unprecedented prayer movement.
All across this island, people are meeting every day, 24 hours a day, to pray for revival, unity, repentance, and protection over their land.
I believe something so simple is start having such a huge impact upon people in the church and also the people around the church.
Gordon Huang pastors one of Taiwan's most well-known congregations. His church sits atop this iconic landmark known as Taipei 101 in the heart of the capital city. He fears war with China is coming and wants Christians to be ready.
I think one thing for sure, people is going to be so shaken and people want to hear the gospel. Are you ready or are you going to be on the run yourself?
That theme of shaking gripped Don Young 2 years ago.
I had heard from the Lord, time is short, the hour is urgent, it's time to pray.
Young served as an American missionary in West Africa for 15 years and has traveled the world teaching Christians how to have a deeper prayer walk with the Lord.
In May of 2021, Pastor Young says he got a word from the Lord that there was going to be a shaking coming to Taiwan. He brought that message to the church leaders here on the island, and that gave birth to a prayer movement that has today swept across Taiwan.
The Revival Prayer Group, or RPG movement, began, made up of a handful of people in groups, taking turns around the clock to pray for Taiwan.
Prayer is the only way that you can get through anything shaky. Jesus did everything by prayer. He did nothing apart from prayer. Before, it was just kind of a moment with God. We all have them. But now it was shaping up to become a movement for God. There's a huge difference between a moment and a movement.
Because RPG has 2 or 3 people in a group, So if one day a war happens and there are no physical buildings that people can meet in, we can still pray in small groups so the church will not be affected.
Peter Yang has pastored and planted churches in Taiwan since 1978 and says he's never seen the kind of unity now on display. Churches across denominational lines joining the initiative.
What's happening today is so rare. Every day, every week, I join pastors from other churches, other denominations, and we pray for our cities, for our nation, for other countries. It's amazing. It's clearly God's doing. Unity will be the legacy of this movement.
More than 100,000 revival prayer groups have sprouted up, with members of China's underground church movement also taking part.
We want to have 300,000 RPG groups, where we also unite with churches in China, coming together, all the leaders and members on both sides, so we can pray with the goal of impacting China as well.
Russia's invasion of Ukraine last year sent a chill across this island nation of 23 million people, with many drawing comparisons between Putin's obsession with taking over Ukraine and Xi Jinping's determination to annex Taiwan. Many fear war can erupt here with little notice, and it's prompting some to search for peace in the midst of constant threats from Beijing.
Many came and joined RPG because they heard so much testimonies of how God is answering prayer. So you have a lot of unbelieving people joining RPG. And as they open their mouth and pray, they experience the Lord. So they're coming to the Lord as well.
CBN News spoke with church leaders who said a potential Taiwan-China war would be like David facing down Goliath, bringing untold devastation and loss of life. They believe prayer can make the difference between war and peace.
We ask churches around the world to pray for this most dangerous place in the world today, so that God's peace can come upon cross-strait relations. Ethnic Chinese should not kill one another, but instead, we should together fulfill the anti-missions movement to bring the gospel back to Jerusalem.
George Thomas, CBN News, Taipei, Taiwan.
Well, that's going to do it for us here at Faith Nation. Have a great night.